afternoon. Attorney Robert Patillo, Chris holding down all the ones and twos. Hope you guys are having a wonderful weekend. It went from 100 degrees like 2 weeks ago to apparently fall or something. It's a wonderful autumn day out. But of course, we're out here enjoying everything that we have before us. As I said, last week we did a dive into it. I'm going to be leaving to go to Congress to work on the Hill on issues like reparations, black agricultural issues, the House Foreign Relations Committee, opportunity to do that. But unfortunately, that means we have to end the radio show, with this week being the last episode. Now, I will say, however, if I get up there and figure out a workaround, because y'all know I'm known for figuring out a workaround, I will try to find a way back to you, girl. But that is not solidified yet. These things happen in real time, in real motion. And so I want you guys to follow me on all social media at Robert Patillo. That's at RobertPatillo. And you'll get updates on everything taking place and what the moves are going forward. You can follow me on Facebook. You can join the Facebook group to talk to your fellow listeners. That's facebook.com/Patillo Radio. And you'll get the up-to-date information on what the next moves are going to be, where we go from here, and how we go around. And as they say, it's been a long time. I'm not going to leave you if I don't beat the step to. But that being said, we have to dive into the news of the week while also looking back on some major things that we've been able to achieve in the last almost 10 years of doing this show. But of course, this week was the Democratic National Convention, or as many people are calling it, Kamala Fest, or Nerd Coachella, because the Democratic Party was able to throw a event unseen in American history. If you're used to watching these national conventions going back, like me, till the 80s, it's normally pretty boring, pretty white. Political insiders watch it. People who are involved in party politics, you want to hear what the platform is of the party. You want to see your state represented. All those things, that's generally what you see at these conventions. The Democrats figured out, however, if we're in the middle of summer, there's no football going on. There's no basketball going on. Nobody's watching baseball. There's no hockey. No major movies are coming out this weekend. You had Deadpool and Wolverine a few weeks ago. You had Alien, Romulus last week. But there's no big movie being released this week. We have the entirety of the media structure to ourselves for a whole week. It is going to be broadcast live on every single network and cable news network. They're going to take clips of this. It's going to be on YouTube and on all social media. They're going to be playing clips of this on radio around the country. Let's give these people a show. So they brought in some of the top Hollywood producers. They brought in some of the top Hollywood talent. They brought in some of the top musical performers, etc. And they actually flew out hundreds of social media influencers. So young people who have huge followings, 500,000 people, 1,000,000 people, 5 million people on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, etc. And they flew them out there and put them up free of charge for the convention, gave them media credentials and passes, the same ones that you'll give the ABC and CNN and everybody else, and just let them roam around the convention, creating content, pushing it out to those Gen Z voters, pushing it out to those millennial voters, and giving it to them where they consume it at. Don't try to make a 20-year-old come to C-SPAN to watch something. You take C-SPAN to them. You put it in the form of something they're used to seeing and used to hearing, and you make sure they have an opportunity to see and consume this information. The entire conference was in the form of almost a macro play. Night one was the veneration of the heroes, where they gave the farewell to Joe Biden, the honorable king who laid down his sword on the battlefield. Well, at least that's the way they're going to write the narrative. No matter what happened, it matters who writes what happened. The honorable general who fought to the last and laid down on the battlefield, handing over command at the last moment. They gave him his grand farewell address. Then you have the nod to the future. We bring out the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortezes, the Jasmine Crockett's of the world, Amanda Gorsuch. You show that we have a strong team going into the next, not just decade, but decades to come. We have a bench. We have Raphael Warnock. We have John Ossoff. We have hundreds of people that can carry this mantle on going forward. So we're connecting 50 years ago with Joe Biden and Jesse Jackson and Maxine Waters and Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, James Clyburn. You're connecting that with 50 years into the future when you have some of these teenagers and even preteens out there, these social media influencers, talking about Democratic policies. There was one amazing moment. There's a social media creator, a young kid, 12 years old, named Noah, and he got into a debate with Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy. The kid is 12, a 12-year-old little black boy, and he destroyed Mike Lindell. I ain't never seen nothing like it. It got so bad that Noah had to walk away because he was the more mature one. He also destroyed Charlie Kirk and many of these other influencers. So when you can have a conference that connects Joe Biden and a 12-year-old, that's how you know you've been successful with it. Then, of course, you have the tribute to the Obamas, the kind of intellectual and spiritual leaders of the Democratic Party, with both Barack and Michelle giving speeches that probably are the best that we've seen since Barack 2004 or Jesse 84. I mean, these were just spectacular, world-changing speeches. You bring out Tim Walz on White Guy Night. So you got Doug Emhoff, you got Tim Walz, you got Gus Walz, Tim Walz's son, who's neurodivergent, that conservatives thought it was a good idea to make fun of him for crying. That blew up in their faces. And you really solidified the connection of the Democrats to the working class, to labor unions, to the upper Midwest, those hard-working people who eat cabbage and potatoes every day and work in the cold, etc. You know, those heartland American folks that they said the Democrats had left behind. They're wearing camo hats. They're talking about gun rights. They're talking about hunting and fishing, proud to be an American, flags flying, etc. Then finally you get to Kamala Harris. And the best thing about all this buildup was all Kamala Harris had to do was land the plane. She didn't have to do any of the heavy lifting. All she had to do was come across as being competent and being not the caricature that Donald Trump was making of her. So there was none of this crazy left-wing Marxism that they were talking about. She gave a national security speech that very much doubled down on neocon values when it comes to national security, strengthening the American military, attacking those who attack us, defending our allies, etc. Because they wanted to answer the questions that the Republican parties had posed and introduce Kamala Harris to the American people in ways that they have never been introduced before. It was masterful stagecraft. Remember, these conventions, what they are infomercials. It's a 4-day infomercial where you completely control the media market. It is a commercial for the candidates. And if you're thinking about this from the sheer conceptualization of trying to sell a product, that being the Democratic Party and the Democratic ticket, they did an outstanding job. All the way down to Lil Jon coming out. And if you are a black man who's about to turn 40 like I am, Lil Jon holds a very special place in your heart. And when he goes, yeah, it's almost like a siren call. You know, everyone's head turns. You have a flashback to 2004. You don't know what's about to happen, but you know it's about to be something positive for your life. So I think they did a great job with that. Now, where they did not do great jobs was it was a very Hunger Games-esque feeling to the entire event. It very much felt that you had the rich elites up in the press boxes looking down on the proletariat from the districts down on the ground, competing in this entertainment. When in reality, the entire point of this convention was they raised almost $100 million over the course of this convention. Kamala Harris has raised $540 million since she entered this race. Remember, before Joe Biden dropped out, one of the questions that I asked was who would have the capacity to raise as much as $1 billion for the general election? Well, that question has been answered because those donors who forced Joe Biden out and said we're holding the money, they opened up the money again. And we saw that there was a $500 million just sitting there that they were not going to give Joe Biden unless he stepped out of the race. So many people in the Democratic Party have this question of, well, we talk about all this unity, we talk about all this joy and happiness going forward, but is this party really controlled by the billionaire class? Is this party really simply a front for the mega donors to get their way while the rest of us have to sit outside in the wilderness? The Democrats refused to address the issue of Palestinians. We had speakers hours after hour, 8 hours a day for 4 days, and they did not have a single Palestinian speaker. They had the hostages family. They had random state senators, they had rappers, they had dancers, they had singers, they had a drum line. We did not hear from the Palestinians at all. Now, we did hear Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Kamala Harris, and others call for a ceasefire, but that's not helpful. No, nobody cares what you call for. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to cancel all weapon shipments to Israel? Because otherwise, this is just navel gazing. This is just talk, and that's what you're going to do. They talked about a black agenda. You saw Al Sharpton there. You saw the Exonerated Five, formerly the Central Park Five. We heard Kamala Harris talk about the need to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act for criminal justice reform. But we did not hear the conversation on reparations that we wanted to hear. And even the polling now showing Kamala Harris winning this election, support from black voters is still at 78% for Kamala Harris. Barack Obama got 95% of the black vote. Hillary Clinton got 90% of the black vote. Joe Biden got 88% of the black vote. Kamala Harris is still at 78% among black people. Indeed, if Kamala Harris was at Obama 2012 numbers with black voters, this race would not even be a competition. We'll be looking at the electoral landslide, probably over 350 electoral votes. So there's still work that needs to be done to convince black voters to support her. And no amount of Little John, no amount of DJs spinning the hits, all those things are going to convince black folks, that last 22% of black people, they're not supporting her. You're going to have to come forward with the policies that we are demanding, and that includes a commission on reparations. I can understand not going directly to reparations because you don't have a broad agreement as to what reparations would be in the black community currently. But we can at least pass John Conyers legislation, the Sheila Jackson Lee legislation. The legislation has been pending in Congress for nearly a half century to simply study reparations. And that's part of the reason I'm going to Washington, D.C., to push that legislation through. But we did not get that strong agenda that we were hoping for. We got a lot of great biographical pieces. We learned a lot about the candidates. Tim Walz and his family are great. Maya, Kamala's sister, is gorgeous and smart and funny and all those things. It was a wonderful infomercial. But we have to remember, for us in our community, early voting starts in mid-October. So when people talk about 77 days, 11 weeks, no. Got 6 weeks till voting starts. Everything got to be ready in 6 weeks. Got one more week of August, and the first week of October, and then September in between. And then you got to be ready to roll out. Some of these people come to you for that last 22% of the black vote. Let them know. We need a commitment to take action on reparations. We need a commitment to at least make federal recommendations on reparations and how you're going to execute them. We need a commitment that you even believe in the principles of reparations for the black community. Because you want that last 22% of the vote. If you get that last 22% of the black vote, that means you win Georgia, you win North Carolina, you win Virginia, you win Michigan, you win Pennsylvania, you win Minnesota, you probably win Texas also. You change the electoral map forever. So how afraid are you to give black folks reparations if it means guaranteeing yourself the White House? We'll be back after the break. We'll go straight to the phone lines. Phone lines are jam-packed. News and Talk 1380 WAOK. People Passion Politics on your Sunday afternoon. We're talking about, of course, the Democratic National Convention. Also, this is the ultimate show, the last show of People Passion Politics, unless I figure out a workaround once I get to this new gig up in D.C. Now, we'll keep you guys cognizant of that. Follow me on all social media at Robert Patillo so you can stay up to date on everything that's going on and what I figure out. You know, I always got to keep the hustle going. Hustle don't stop. It never quits. It never lays down. But, of course, I want to hear from you guys. So going to the phone lines, we got Gideon on the line. Gideon, what do you think of the Democratic National Convention?
Robert Patillo, the genius, the intelligence, the dedication, the international wherewithal, the roots into the history, the ancient of our people. There is no replacement for you, my brother. Not at all. The courage that you have demonstrated throughout this time, the brilliance of that intellect had to expand beyond just what we hear at WAOK. And it is not surprising because they've always taken the genius from our community and incorporated it because they could not control it unless they did bring it into an environment where they have the most control. And yes, I think you will find a workaround because WALK represents such a vast and important access to the minds and hearts of so many people of color. The Hebrew Israelite community, whether they know it or not, and the biblical ancients of our people listen to this radio program and this station. So I hope they bring in new, fresh blood, because when you were doing your political thing, the people they brought in, no disrespect, they just couldn't carry your jockstrap, because you represent something so unique by bringing in your comedic style, your intellectual style, your world view. It's unparalleled, and they're going to have a very, very difficult time. They won't be able to replace you. They'll just put somebody in that position. But let me just say about the DNC. Let me first say something very positive about Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris has shown young girls in America what a conservative dress style is. You don't go out there with a dress up above your knees. You don't go out there exposing yourself. You wear the type of clothing that don't bring people attention to your lower extremities. It brings the attention to your heart, your mind, your smile, and your intellect. If nothing else comes from this, I hope our daughters will see that and learn from that and come out. And see, I come from a generation where men used to say, I wear the pants in the house. I haven't seen Kamala Harris wear a dress, but she's wearing pants, and that's where we are in this country. Women are wearing pants. Yeah, there was a lot of charismatic bravado in the DNC presentation, but just like black people have always had, it's charismatic power. It's not true power. The influencing and the control mechanism of this charismatic power hasn't morphed into anything other than contract deals in the entertainment industry, whether it's sports, dance, all that. That's what they brought us over here for. So it's nothing new. But the reality of our circumstances is, Robert, how can you support an agenda that is about same-sex, perversion, corruption, and the American ideal of countering what the nation was built on, and that's family, men and women producing children, bringing them up into an environment where they can produce more children. The national birth rate in America has gone down because of the perversion and the corruption. If you have an agenda where the political agenda is to kill innocent babies, how can you support that? I don't care where you're from. They are about killing innocent babies. You're not going to kill a mother who's having an atopical pregnancy and her life depends on it, her not having that child. Nobody's promoting that. They're promoting because of our daughters, unfortunately, have followed the Ann Singer's this eugenics agenda that has always been pointed at us. It's about killing innocent life. How can anyone in their right mind be about that when you have so many means of contraceptive that you can use without letting a child development go into the second trimester or what have you, and you want to suck and cut and mutilate that child out of a mother's womb? That's barbaric. That is America. So when we look at what this country is promoting through the DNC and the RNC, they both represent the same thing. They're two sides of the same coin. It is the corporate interest that runs the economic machine that is capitalism. And the militarization that they utilize to control the world is their weapon where they bludgeon nations into submission. So that having been said, Robert, man, I hope that you follow what the elder said last week. Have a meeting at least down at Church's restaurant where we went before. You don't have to go anywhere. Your beautiful wife came down the last time. That's when Darnell was here. We love you, man. You represent some of the greatest that this community has produced. Your mom, your family, I'm sure they're all proud of you, even though you are a ward of the court, Esquire. But the bottom line is how your even tone and your justice in allowing people to speak speaks volumes about who you are and what your father has instilled in you and your family values. We love you, bro. We want the best for you, and we hope that you will reach heights that you haven't even imagined in this wicked world in which we are presently captive in our hearts and minds. What say you, sir?
I appreciate every word of that, Gideon. And one thing that I appreciate is that we have disagreed on things over the years. However, we both agree on the concept of exactly what needs to happen for black communities. Now, how you get there, that's where we diverge. But as long as we're working toward the same goal, I think everyone needs to be finding their place, what they can do, where they fit into this institution. There's enough work for everybody that we don't all need to be duplicating and doing the same thing. And I think the work that you do in the community has to be appreciated. I wish you would come over to the side of voting, because I think it's important. But I think as long as we're all doing the work that needs to be done in our community, we can get things done. So I really appreciate it, Gideon.
Hey, we appreciate you. We love you. We support you. And even the people who don't agree with you have to respect the awe-inspiring spirit that you bring into the work that you've been doing in your international pool and the world that comes to your feet to hear the wisdom of Attorney Robert Patillo. Love you, my brother. Peace and blessings to you and your family.
Thank you so much, Gideon. We'll be back after the break. Calling 447-226-1380 News and Talk 1380 WAOK.
I'm different, yeah, I'm different. Pull up to the scene with my ceiling missing. Pull up.
Welcome back, News and Talk 1380 WAOK, the voice of the community. Calling 447-226-1380 get you involved in the conversation. Attorney Robert Patillo, Chris Smith holding down on the ones and twos. If you have been a long-time listener of this show, People, Passion, Politics, you'll know that the show kind of came together when there was an opening for a weekend show, and then Gene Ross came to me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing a weekend show?" I said, "Sure," because I've been, doing the legal commentary for Lorraine Jacques White for years, and then when Rashad got his weekend show, I would come on Rashad's show, and then Rashad got the weekday show, back then the 10 a.m. show, and so they opened up a spot on the weekends that I kind of slid into, just kind of serendipity. But at the time, they didn't have a producer for the show. And so a young guy who just moved down from New York was also kind of just getting his foot in the door. So they stuck us together, and what you got was a few years of radio magic for good and for bad. And joining us now, Darnell Morris, the comedian, is on the line. Darnell, how you doing?
Robert Patillo, is this it? Is this what it's come down to?
Hey, we're doing a reunion. We're back together, reunited, and feel so good.
I got to tell you, man, it's kind of bittersweet for me because, we started this thing together. Obviously, you went on it for a couple more years after I left and came back home, man. But I look back over the time, and we had some magic in that studio, man.
Yeah, do you ever think we'll be ending the show voluntarily and not be escorted out the building?
It's amazing, actually. I don't know if you remember. Remember one day you had gotten a death threat?
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
But it was Sunday, so the studio was very light. And all we hear is a knock at the door. And everybody looks over at the door. Like, I'm not answering that one, Robert. That's on you.
look. Everybody wants to be in it until wait a minute, they were for real. Oh, my bad. Yeah, this is yours. You got to play, boy.
Yeah, let me go out the back entrance. He said, D, we don't have a back entrance. I said, well, at least you get shot first. I'll be out here.
Yeah, but so look, tell everybody what you've been up to. Cause you know, you got the touring schedule going on, you got the comedy popping off. So let everybody know. They want to know what's been going on with the dirtiest guy in Atlanta radio for a while.
Now I'm the dirtiest D in the NYC. Now listen to me. I got the barbecue pit tonight. That's on who cares, in Queens. That's already sold out, so that's cool. I just did Mohegan Sun. It's an almost sold out crowd. Almost sold out crowd. I hosted over there. And September 20th is the next big thing. A black-owned business is supporting a black-owned business, i.e. me. They want to take a chance, and they want us to call Vons on 198-14 Jamaica Avenue, if you're in Queens, Hollis specifically. And they said, could you come over here and pack this thing out and do a show? Robert, this is the first time. Get this ticket price, right? This is how much people are paying for me. $45. That is a week's salary at WAOK, okay?
That is 5 hours of work, well, barely, but
that is 5 legit hours over there. Who knew? Look at me now, WAOK. But Robert, I do want to say, man, I've had so much fun over the years. Like you mentioned in your intro, we didn't know each other from a hole in the wall, and they just stuck us together. And I mean, it didn't take, I don't think it took a month before we were at the bar and clicking. And the show just rolled, baby.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that what people also need to know is that very much a large part of this of the show came together over like scotch and tequila at the bar downstairs. As we started trying to brainstorm things together, that's where we will get some of those wackier show ideas back in the day, because the show's kind of very structured. Now we come in, we have the monologue, we have the A block, have a guest at the top of the 2 o'clock hour, we have discussion. You know, kind of flows. It seems like a well-oiled machine. Those of you who have been around know it has not always been like that. Remember the Ku Klux Klan show? I think that might have been the highlight.
Oh, yeah. I think there were several highlights. That was definitely one of them. I always appreciated, these people thought that you would bring in these black people, black millionaires, to talk about wealth. No, that's because we're poor. And afterwards, they would go top shelf liquor, and it would be $40 a shot. And me and Robert just look at each other. You got this, bro? Nah, I ain't got it. You got this, bro? And the billionaire would be like, don't even worry about it. It's all on me.
Yeah, until that one time they weren't, and my pockets got hurt. I was like, yeah, I'll pay for it. And they were ordering, Louis the 13th.
1942 or something.
Yeah, whatever
like
it was. It was like $200 a shot, and we got 3 of them. And I didn't, my bank account was not ready for that, and I don't think I ever told the wife about that one, because that was a rough one. But my favorite was you coming down, because like Darnell has this thing where he's so New York centric, he doesn't understand that things happen outside of the boroughs. They're like, there's the rest of the world out there. So I'm like, well, we got a guest coming in. He's a high-profile guest. I need you to go find him. Then Darnell's like, I don't care who this dude is. I'm like, Darnell, look, we need to get him in here. It's going to be big for the show. Like, whatever, because Darnell always had a bad attitude all the time. And so Darnell's like, hey. Darnell said, hey, that guy Umar Johnson is somewhere downstairs. I'm like, well, go get him. And the whole time Darnell has no concept who he is. And now here you are these years later, he's the most viral person online, and you have his cell phone number. But at the time, you had no interest in actually doing any work and going out and talking to him.
Did I tell you he stopped talking to me recently? He stopped talking to me because I saw a picture. I sent him a text with him and some white women. I said, Dr. Umar, what happened? He has not spoken to me.
Well, you cannot be out here slandering this man, claiming he is cavorting with white women, Darnell.
Well, listen, he needs to stop being out here slandering himself. I didn't make the picture. But if we're going to be Afrocentric, brother, be Afrocentric. But it was just a private text. It's not like I posted it online. He's very sensitive.
It's not like you came on radio and talked about it or anything.
Yeah, that may have happened today. But
he's already that may be happening currently, like right now, right? Now, maybe having that conversation right now.
It's already done, so, I don't know if you remember this show. We can talk about this now. You didn't do anything wrong. It was me. But we had some guys in there, and they were talking about weed was just becoming decriminalized.
Oh, yeah. Dr. Bryant was in.
Yes. So they had this vape pen. Now, I, who don't smoke weed at all, I said, let me see this pen. And Robert, like, blinked and turned back around, and there was just smoke billowing.
That absolutely happened.
And, I mean, we were only 30 minutes into the show. 15, not even minutes later, I'm on the couch. I'm like, Robert, you're going to have to hit the button. I can't do this.
Look, Chris, remember last week when I told you about that couch?
Yep, I remember that loud and clear.
Yeah, now do you see what I'm saying about don't never sit on that couch?
Yeah, darn it, you just exposed it, Darnell. Now nobody's sitting on that couch no more.
No, do not sit on that couch. I put a black light on it. See if it don't catch on fire.
First of all, maybe WAOK should invest $99 at IKEA and get a new couch.
I feel like if we was to put a UV light on it, I'm afraid of what we will see.
Look, I'm amazed that couch. I'm amazed the couch hasn't got up and walked away yet.
The couch is like, if you've ever been to Amsterdam, right? So they have, the girls in the windows. But if you go down to the far end, it's like the women who didn't get out the game early enough. That's that old prostitute couch right there. It's got no other exit.
Well, look, I will say it's the sturdiest piece of furniture I've ever seen. I got nothing in my house that has survived what that couch has gone through. But real quick, Darnell, before we run out of time. So, looking back over the course of all those years and where it had kind of like propelled you to now, because again, it definitely gave you a leg up in the comedy game to be able to, have an outlet, those sorts of things. For the listeners, what would be your one thing you would like to share from your time at WAOK?
Okay, the one thing I would like to share, and I want to say this from my heart, Robert, I didn't know what I was getting into with you, but you have truly become one of my closest and trusted confidants and friends, man. And it goes beyond the radio station. It goes beyond the friendship. It's family. And if I don't appreciate anything else, there are other things, but if I don't appreciate anything else, Robert, you the man, brother.
Thanks so much, Darnell. We never got through several of those years without you either, so I really appreciate everything you did. You grew the show in large part into what it is. I really appreciate you calling in.
Thank you, brother. Yo, Darnell Morris Comedy on all platforms. Check me out.
Yes, Darnell is really he's out here touring and everything. You'll see him, particularly if you're in the New York area. If you go to any random, scary, hole-in-the-wall club where you might get stabbed, Darnell was performing there tonight. He will always be there.
Robert,
all right. Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick. Did you see my latest video in front of the wall of penises?
I did indeed see that. I was going to bring it up, but apparently you were. I was like, I'm just going to let him live his truth and all those things.
Darnell Morris Comedy. Get on Instagram. Check that out, man.
All right. Thanks so much, Darnell. All right, we'll be back after the break. Calling 44726-1380 News and Talk 1380 WA.
If you had one shot, one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment, did you capture it? Just let it slip. Yo. His palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on his sweater already.
The voice of the community on 44726-1380. You can involve in the conversation. Joining us now on the back line, the woman who actually allows all these things to happen because she gets a veto over all of these things. Joining us, my wife, Stacey Patillo. Stacey, how are you doing?
I am well. Hello to everyone out there listening. I won't take up too much of your time, but I did want to take a minute to tell you, Robert, how proud I am of you. I'm proud of you every day, but I'm particularly proud of you and what you've done with this show. I'm not going to lie. When you brought the idea to me years ago, I said, oh, great, I lose time with you on the Sunday. But I have come to realize that it was one of the best decisions that you could have made because the impact that you have had is immeasurable. So I want to say something, too, also to Gene Ross, who's no longer, I understand, with the station, and to your current leadership at the station. Thank you, because what you've done is provided an outlet for Robert to hone and really perfect his craft and to become the all-star that he is in media globally. So thank you for that. Also to the listeners. So I know when you heard this guy on the radio for the first time, you're like, who is he? What is he talking about? All these big ideas that he's speaking about. But I do want you to really know how important you are to him and how he holds you in everything that he does. It was so important for him to bring some ideas and create discussion around topics that people weren't talking about. And everything that he does, whether it's marching in the streets to protest things that have been unjustly done to our people, or whether it is sitting on TV globally across the world, he takes you with him, and now he will take you with him to the Capitol. So thank you for your support. And the best thing that you can do if you are a fan of Robert, if you enjoy what he does every Sunday, is to continue to have these tough conversations with your friends and family and continue the intelligent discourse. So thank you for supporting him. Robert, thank you for being the leader of our household, the leader of our family, and providing an example to me on what it means to be a strong, intelligent black man. I love you.
Oh, love you too, sweetie. All right, thanks so much. This show was not supposed to be all emotional. It's supposed to be a Sunday talking about the DNC. Well, we're gonna keep the conversation going. I want you guys to talk about what did you learn from the DNC, and also for longtime listeners, tell us what's some of your favorite memories from this show over the course of the last decade. Because people are just hitting me up all online and everything, talking about some of their favorite moments. A lot of them I forgot even happened. So it's crazy thinking about back to some of the things we were able to get away with. Someone texted me and brought up the time that we decided to have a dominatrix on for Mother's Day. Forgot we did that, but that indeed happened. Now, Chris, not only did we have a dominatrix on for Mother's Day, it was a 65-year-old dominatrix we had on for Mother's Day one year.
Oh my gosh, I'm interested to know how did that even come about?
Well, see, what happens often is I used to schedule like a lot of guests. Like we don't have a lot of guests now because of more conversation based. But so I would schedule people out like 3-4 weeks into the future, and I wasn't thinking about what day it was when the lady had a book out, and her publicist came to me and said, "Well, can you get her on the show?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's have her on in 2 weeks on that Sunday." It just so happens it was Mother's Day, and she was already at the studio, so it was too late to cancel. So it was an interesting conversation, if nothing else. It was a very, very interesting conversation. Another one people brought up was when I did our first transgender roundtable. So at the time we were, it was right when the Obama, transgenders in bathrooms things was popping off. And so I wanted to kind of break some of the ignorance and stigma around it. I didn't know much about the community either. So we did a show on that, which turned into a very big conversation piece. I think Todd almost got into a physical altercation. They were in the same room with some of our guests, so that was an entertaining one. But I want you to get to call and tell me about some of your favorite moments. Let's go back to the phone lines. We got Dooley on the line from Florida. Dooley, how are you?
Hey, Robert, how you doing today?
I'm good. Go ahead, Dooley.
Hey, Robert, I want to promote my new show, Dooley Passionate About Politics, every Sunday from 1 to 3 p.m. on WAOK. Thanks for promoting me and get Miss Ross to sign off on it. Robert, you're the best friend I ever had.
Absolutely, Dooley. Look, one thing about Dooley is Dooley's going to be on the show before I get here. So normally I get on, I log in. Chris will tell you I log on at the very last minute. So I mean, if the show starts at 1, I'm getting on at 12:58, 12:59, maybe 1:05. It depends on how things are going. As soon as we get here, Chris, who are the first 2 people on the line every week? Gideon and Dooley. Never fails, and I mean I can set my clock by it. So I really appreciate it. Love the fact that you guys are so passionate that you know that you can come here to get your words out there, and people will hear you. And they may not agree with you, and they may think you're crazy, but at least they will hear. And the people who need to hear it, and the people who will agree with you, will get that message out there. So thanks so much for your call, Dooley.
And thanks for being there, Robert. I really appreciate it. You're giving me a hegemonic education.
You know, it's funny. People, my wife always gets on me about that. She says, "Well, who exactly are you talking for?" Because half the people don't even know what you're saying half the time. I'm like, but the people who do know to go look things up, and that's the important thing. The way you learn is by, if we don't know something, going to learn it, and then now you learn it and you can pass it on. So, well, thank you so much, Dooley. All right, let's keep the phone lines going. We have got Jay from New York on the line. Jay, what was your favorite moment from the DNC? What do you think we learned from it?
Hey, as far as I'm concerned, man, the DNC was a minstrel show. But let me say this, Robert. First, we need to thank your beautiful queen for allowing us to have you for these Sundays and doing what you do. Second of all, listen to what I'm saying to you, Robert. The ancestors are placing you in this position to be able to gather the information that we need as a people to move forward. because I'm going to be very frank with you, Robert. I don't see you staying there for long based on your personality and inability to put up with BS. So all I can say to you is this, Robert. Go there, enjoy yourself, learn, make the necessary context that you need to make to be able to come back and be the leader that black people need to move us forward. Because, Robert, we are in serious, serious times as a community. Every other community in this country is moving forward more than black people are. And that's because we don't have any leadership. And the reason why we don't have any leadership is because they've all sold out for their love of the white man and for money. So, Robert, I ask you to do one thing. Go there, learn, process, and come back and be the leader that black people need. Because, Robert, you have the skill set, the ability, the intellect, and most of all, the character to help us survive with what is ahead of us as a people. So thank you again, my brother. And I will honestly say this. If you looked at what you saw at the Democratic convention, you will see that the majority of the people there are sycophants. They believe in a woman who is really, to be honest, nothing more than Barack Obama 2.0, and let's hope that she's that good to be Barack Obama 2.0. The reality is she's going to do very little, if anything, for black people. But it's going to take men like you to move us forward, Robert, once you get the information and the knowledge from being there firsthand on how this wicked government works to keep us down, and then to come to the community, Robert, with the intellect and the passion and the love that you have for us to move us forward as a true leader. And I thank you.
Thank you so much, Jay. And look, like I said, Kamala Harris has 78% of black support right now. They need that other 22% to win. They have to have it. I think that math is right. Yeah, they got to have it. So the time to make your demands is right now. They're going to be doing a bus tour throughout Georgia in the next week. They're going to be having a rally down in Savannah next week. This is the time to make those demands known. And look, if they want to get it, they got to come get it. They got $500 million in their pocket in order to push this campaign. They got to address these issues, but they'll only do it if we force them to do so. We'll be back after the break. Calling 44726-1380. News and Talk 1380 WAOK. It's on your Sunday afternoon. For one last time, Attorney Robert Patillo. Chris Smith holding it down on the ones and twos. As I said, in the coming weeks, next week is Labor Day. It's my birthday. We're going to take a week off. We're going to get transition. Going to do orientation, all those fun things, the key card and all that stuff. I'll be heading up to Washington, D.C. to work on Capitol Hill, so that I'll be able to directly impact important legislation we have coming up, both on the House Foreign Affairs Committee as well as the House Agricultural Committee, dealing with issues including foreign aid, dealing with this Study Commission on Reparations legislation, dealing with black farmers. Really, all the stuff we talk about on the show, being able to get my hands dirty in it and try to push through some real substantive federal legislation on the topics in a official role on the Hill. Unfortunately, working at that level of government does not allow you to have a weekly local talk show where you get to talk a whole bunch of smack with no consequences, as I have enjoyed for the past several years. And I did not realize how much of a impact that had on me because, you get used to things. And I've gotten kind of used to being an alley cat. where you just run around, you eat what you want, you sleep where you want, you do what you want all those times, and then someone tries to rescue you and bring you into the house, and it's an acclimation process. You ain't used to being just somewhere sitting around and cuddling and stuff. You're used to hunting. You ain't used to your food coming in a little bowl. You ain't used to no litter box and those sorts of things. So it's definitely going to be an acclimation process, but I do think that is the best thing that can be done in order to help push some of these crucial issues. And as I articulated last week, the black vote is at the strongest positioning right now than perhaps it has ever been. Both parties have never needed the black vote more than they need it today. Malcolm talked about this in his Ballad of the Bullet speech, that both parties need the black vote more than ever, and that was in 1960, going into the 1964 election. I'm saying today, when Kamala Harris is only getting 78% of support from black folks in the latest polling, and that number for Democrats used to be in the 90s, we're talking about not just black men, but increasing numbers of black women supporting Donald Trump. You have the ADOS movement. You have the FBA movement, those COINTELPRO organizations that are trying to convince black folks not to support anyone that is supporting their community. We have rappers. We have Instagram influencers. You got Amber Rose out there, Lil Pump. You got Sexy Red, all supporting Donald Trump. Waka Flocka Flame, Lil Uzi Vert, Kodak Black, Lil Wayne, all the rappers that Trump pardoned. It's a real movement out there, including young people who, if you grew up, if let's say you are 18 years old right now, 20 years old right now, you've grown up with the Trump era. The Trump era has been a decade at this point in time. So you've been dealing with Trump and Trumpism since you were 8, 9, 10 years old. And because of that, you kind of got used to your president making your mama jokes, telling stand-up comedy, calling people fat pigs, those sorts of things. And also, you remember when Trump was president, you remember not having to go to school, not having to go to work, getting free checks in the mail. Everybody you knew had a PPP loan. They had an EIDL loan. They were buying Gucci belts and Lambos and all that stuff. Yeah, some of them went to prison for fraud, but hey, everybody ain't go to prison for fraud. And you have a very different conceptualization of Trump than people who are older who remember what presidents were like before that. I reminded my wife when we were watching the DNC convention, it was the night that Barack and Michelle were speaking, that Barack left office almost 10 years ago now. That was 2016. It's 2024. It's been nearly a decade since he left office. And those kind of hope and change years of Obama, when he was really just that bright, shining figure in the Democratic Party, that was 20 years ago. That speech he gave to the DNC that really launched his political career, that was 2004. So if you are 20, if you're 24 years old, you know Obama kind of as a legend, as a pop culture figure, but you don't really have memories of what he was like as president. You don't remember the dignity and the respect, the restraint, the measured nature that he had in office. You have a very different view of what presidents are supposed to do, as opposed to what we're seeing now. There was a point in time when Bill Clinton played the saxophone and the whole world lost their damn mind. Like, oh my God, a president or someone running for president can play a saxophone almost as well as a seventh grader. What? And he has sunglasses on. I can't believe it. And he eats McDonald's. He's the first black president. That is literally how low the bar was back then. And for Kamala, she's dealing with a much more jaded electorate, a much more informed electorate, an electorate that very much doesn't play off of the same rules that existed previously. And they're going to have to try to find a way to make up that gap and to bridge that area. And as black folks, we have to say, well, we got 22% of our vote that is still up for grabs for you, but it's going to require that you might have to sacrifice some of that suburban, middle-of-the-road, white Midwestern vote that might be scared of you if you come out strongly in favor of reparations, strongly in favor of criminal justice reform, strongly in favor of DEI and affirmative action, and all the federal legislation that's necessary to help us prosper and move forward. You have a chunk of white America that is so afraid that we're going to become the majority and we're going to treat them like they treated us, that they are willing to vote against their own pecuniary self-interest in order to ensure the sustenance of white supremacy. Very much Donald Trump is the last bastion of white supremacy in the Western world. In Great Britain, the Tories have fallen. the party of Boris Johnson, the party of Margaret Thatcher. The Conservative Party has fallen to Labor. Labor very much being made up of minority groups of people who have come to the motherland from all across the former empire. So we've seen the Conservative Party there fall. We saw in France this year, we had Marine Le Pen's national rally. They really thought they were going to bring a right-wing agenda to France. Macron made an agreement with the left-wing party in order to ensure another generation of centrist rule. The right-wing fascists failed there. Compare that to Italy, where Giorgia Meloni and her right-wing neo-Mussolini fascist party was successful, and their economy has stagnated and fallen behind the rest of Europe. The same with Viktor Orban in Hungary. If you look at Lukashenko in Belarus, Erdogan in Turkey, all the places those extreme right-wing governments have failing economies, failing standards of living, and increasing militarism within their borders. And the last bastion of that in America is Donald Trump. If you put Trump up for election 3 times in a row, and he loses 2 out of the 3 times, that movement is officially dead. That movement is officially over. And Republicans will have to figure out in real time, what do they do to transition to a new form of the Republican Party that's more palatable to the American people. In the interim, we'll be looking at 4 years of Joe Biden, and then potentially 8 years of Kamala Harris up until 2032. And then look at the bench behind Kamala Harris. Did you see Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, in his speech? Did you see Raphael Warnock, our senator here in Georgia, in his speech to the DNC? Did you see Gavin Newsom, the governor of California? The Democrats have a bench stretching 20 or 30 years out into the future, to the point that there are a lot of people that will never get their opportunity. Cory Booker will probably never be president because his moment passed him by. The same with Bernie Sanders, same with Elizabeth Warren, same with many of those people. Pete Buttigieg is going to have a very significant political future and will run in either 2032 or 2036 to potentially be America's first openly gay president. Not to mention the growing Latino vote that we're seeing. And many of them are going to feel that we've had 2 out of our last 4 presidents be African American, that is their turn up to bat. So in 2032, you're going to be looking at the Castro brothers putting their names in the hat. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez will probably be in her 40s by then. It'll be time for her to run potentially for president. So the point that I'm making is that we're at a fulcrum point in American politics. We're at a pivot point where everything is going to change. Just like the 1960 election was the election where everything changed. The 1932 election was an election where everything changed. The 1980 election was an election where everything changed. We're at one of those crucial points, a Kairos moment in American politics. And the question for black folks is, will we unite together and push one agenda that will lift us up for the next century to come? Or will we continue to let division, infighting, prevent us from fulfilling our full political goals and our full political opportunities? We've somehow allowed everything in the black community to descend into the gender wars. Black men versus black women. HBCUs versus the trenches. The boule versus the hood folks, etc. Nations die from civil wars. It's easy to fight an outside force. It's easy to come together to unite against the alien invasion. But when it's a war that is brother against brother, man against woman, father against child, nobody wins. So as long as black folks are fighting black folks, the only people who win that war is the white supremacist power structure around us. We're going to keep this conversation going after the break and go back to the phone lines. Call in 404-726-1380, News and Talk 1380 WAOK. And of course, we're talking about the DNC convention. What did you learn? What did you hope to hear? What do you think the takeaway is of the 4-day Kamala Fest? But also, since this is our last episode of People, Passion, Politics, potentially keeping a little crack in the door in case I figure something out. So if you guys, pop back up 2 weeks from now, you're like, hey, Patillo back. Like, oh, I guess you figured something out. So, but we're still going to treat this as if it's going to be our penultimate episode, because that's what it is, or our ultimate episode, because that's what it is on paper right now. But I want to hear what was your big takeaway? What were some of your favorite moments from these show the last years that we've had together? So going back to the phone lines, we have got T-Party Lou on the line. Lou, how are you doing?
Hey, good afternoon. Good luck up there. I know somebody that interned there and thought it was just a cesspool of immorality and who knows what. So
that is exactly what it is. That is not a stretch.
Yeah, I mean, both parties, it is a cesspool from his assessment, and I trust his judgment. But, I think one of the big takeaways from this week should be two sort of opposites that join together. And if you look at what RFK Jr. said when he was sort of dropping out of the race and endorsing Donald Trump, and he said the Democrat Party is the party of war, which I think you have to agree with that. The party of censorship. I've asked you that numerous times over the last years, how you have a country with government censorship. Corruption. I think it's obvious that they are the party of corruption. Big pharma. Our FDA and thing is funded pretty much all together by the pharmaceutical industry. It comes from the pharmaceutical industry that they're supposed to be regulating. And we can see what they did with the COVID vaccines, for example, how that was something I never expected to see in our country. Just what they did to the people and the children of our country with the COVID vaccine, with slavery and abortion, what they did with the COVID and the COVID vaccine, how they weaponized that. But they had a purpose for that. And it was control, and it was to get mail-in voting and all that, and they weaponized it. And that one I never saw coming. I understand, grift and all that, but also he said they're the party of big tech and big ag, and I hope you realize that when you go up there to work with a Democrat, I assume, on agriculture. Their goal is you'll own nothing. Their goal is for the corporations, the corporate farmer. They'll put in climate regulations to squash out the small farmer. They're doing it in California. They're doing it in Oregon. They're doing it in different places. And that's how they'll operate, because they want big ag and then big money. And I think those things they want a central bank digital currency. Those are all things that they're going for. And a couple of things that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said that he agreed with Trump on. One of them is the censorship and how they've weaponized the legal system to go against any political opponent. And I think you've seen that. I mean, you take Donald Trump here in Georgia, since we're in Georgia. And what did he really do in Georgia? He questioned an election. And you questioned an election, right? You lost, 45,000 votes on your election? Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. So he questioned an election. He tried to get his day in court. He was denied the day in court. And instead that judge assigns him a special grand jury. And then he's indicted. He has 5 of his lawyers indicted for what? Questioning an election. And I don't know how you have a country with that. And then you look at children. You look at what the left does with children, what the ruling class does with children, whether it's education. Their education is not to teach them to excel, to start their business, to do these things. It's there was a teacher that spoke at a Kamala rally August 11th. And it's about teaching them social justice, and they're never going to change. It's not teaching them math and reading and how to start a business. It's to teach them and to indoctrinate them to be part of this top-down government. And I'll give you an example of where I see this get carried out. There was a Fifth Circuit judge, a Trump-appointed judge, that was going out to Stanford Law School to give a lecture and do a question and answer thing. And Stanford Law School, you can probably tell them, is one of the top-rated law schools in the country, if not the top-rated law school. So I would expect these progressive law students to want to, be strong and say, I'm going to show this judge his place. I'm going to sit there and I'm going to debate him and I'm going to win based on my ideas. Instead, this judge goes out there and they scream sexual innuendos. They yell and scream all sorts of vile stuff. The teacher sponsoring it goes along with it, doesn't really criticize them, and he never gets a chance to even talk because those students can't even reason and think anymore. And if you look at another aspect of what they do with kids, in their schools when they indoctrinate, they want to get rid of family, they want to get rid of God, And that's what the transgender ideology is about. We can lie to your parents. And we've talked about that many times. But you also look at children coming across the border. We had a report this week from the Inspector General from Homeland Security. And if you look at kids that they have no idea what happened to them, they never gave them notices to appear in court, or when they didn't appear, didn't know where they were. But there's 323,000 unaccompanied children that have been brought across the border. Of course, the cartels are paid thousands of dollars for each one. And the report was saying we don't know if they're sex trafficked or put into forced labor. We don't know. We don't know. And yet if somebody like me or somebody like Donald Trump or somebody, anybody on the right, any MAGA person says we need to secure our borders, build a wall, we're called all sorts of names. Yet there are 323 children, just the ones that our government actually had hands on and transferred off, and we don't even know. They don't even know if they're in sex trafficking or forced labor. And you know, and those things will never be discussed because our government is censoring speech. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. knows that. They censored him early on the COVID vaccine. And people have been horrifically hurt by what was done with COVID. They're still being hurt by what's being done with COVID, with the COVID vaccine. And it's something that you weren't even allowed to discuss. And so when you sit there and you support Kamala, what does she want? She wants to get rid of your private insurance and have a single payer where you're under control. When they want to give you a COVID vaccine and force you to take it, you have no choice. They want to take away fracking and offshore drilling. So I don't even know why. I guess to skyrocket your food costs and everything else. I mean, they both have said they want to censor speech. They both have done it. They both have censored speech. And I honestly don't know. And you know, if they pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, you'll never even have a hope of having a free and fair election because the easiest way to cheat is with mail-in voting. And you know it. Everybody knows it. Jimmy Carter said that decades ago. That's how you cheat. I have two friends that I had breakfast with yesterday. They voted in person in 2020, and they each received 2 mail-in ballots. I know people that went to vote, went to go vote in person, were told they'd already voted by mail. Because anytime you introduce mail-in voting, you have widespread fraud. They've already built that into the system.
Lou, question. So for about the first 10 years or so, actually about 20 years of mail-in voting, it was heavily skewed towards Republicans because Republicans generally had older voters, elderly voters who voted by mail. It was generally early voting benefited Democrats by making it easier for 9 to 5 employees to be able to go in 2 or 3 days or a week before the election time. Why is it only when mail-in voting started to benefit Democrats did Republicans decide mail-in voting was a bad thing?
Well, because if you look at the Tea Party was against the Republican establishment. Remember, I said in the very beginning, the whole thing up there is a cesspool. And if you go to Brian Kemp and Ravensburger, they're a cesspool. It's about power, and they know they can screw the system if they can make up votes, make up voters. There's no control over it. You can have people buying votes, stealing votes, bribing votes, blackmailing votes, making up votes. They can make up people. They've been doing that. And you have no control. So they don't want you to vote. You know that. They took your votes away, right? On election night?
Yeah, you're right, though. And I think
who's going to fix that? Is Kamala ever going to fix that if she's the beneficiary of it?
Well, look, Lou. I think that what we're seeing, Lou. I think the thing is that what we're seeing is that both parties are like this, and when we try to make it a left versus right versus center thing, there's a reason that RFK has to drop out. There's a reason to try to push Cornel West out. There's a reason that you don't have really open democratic processes on either side of the aisle, because at the end of the day, Chris Cuomo had a great speech at the Democratic convention. It's not the people people on the floors, not the people waving the flags and stuff that have any impact on this. This is one set of donors buying a team and another set of donors buying another team, and often they both invest in both teams to make sure that they win either way. Think about the power that the Israeli lobby has. They have that power because they invest both on the Democratic side of the aisle and the Republican side of the aisle. And I think that we take this out of this place of saying it's Republican versus Democrat, but rather it's the people versus the aristocrats, then that's what will make real progress. So give me the last word on this, Lou.
Trump is on the side of the people. Donald Trump has always been on the side of the people, and that's why they tried to kill him. He's always been on the side of the people. And
I don't think most people. I don't think most people agree with you on that, Lou, and I think that's where we start losing people.
You listen to the propaganda.
It's not about listening to propaganda. It's about seeing what's directly in front of you and saying that one person appears to only care about staying out of prison. The other party may not be perfect, but they don't keep going to prison. But we got to go, Lou. We're way past Lou. But I really appreciate you calling. I really appreciate all your calls over the years. It's been great conversations. And people always ask me, how do you go on Newsmax and OAN and Fox and debate these conservatives? Because I get years of practicing with Tea Party Lou and our other conservative callers that they help you to hone your skills. Iron sharpens iron. I really appreciate it, Lou. All right, we'll be back after the break calling Forbes on your Sunday afternoon. Of course, we were talking about retrospective things you've enjoyed from this show as we kind of conclude this this particular iteration of the program where we go to work on some of the legislative issues that are so important in Washington, D.C. Remember, these people are spending billions of dollars on this election. We could spend as a nation these same billions of dollars that we spend on these political campaigns on so many other things. I think about how much money it must have took to put on that Democratic National Convention and that Republican National Convention. Between the musical acts, the hotels, the plane tickets, renting arenas, banners, TV cameras, crews, buses, etc. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars were probably spent on each of these 4-day infomercials to convince people to vote for them. Well, they had just spent that money fixing things. That might have gotten more votes just doing that than they would have gotten from all this campaigning. Think about the amount of money they spend on airplanes going around the country, on bus tickets, on hotels for staff. A lot of these staffers on these presidential campaigns, particularly on the highest levels, they're six-figure plus jobs. I don't mean six-figure like $101,000. I mean some of the senior staffers make $250,000, $500,000 a year to advise these people, to advise them on media and campaign writing, speech writing, strategy, data analytics, all down the line. Will they put all that money just into fixing things? Don't you think that have more of an impact on people than telling people that you fix things you haven't fixed? So at the end of the day, when we talk about politics, it's this conversation about who gets what when. Then on a graduate level, how and why. And when you have a political system that rewards verisimilitudes over veracity, where talking about things is more fruitful than actually doing things. Think about it this way. Legislatively, Joe Biden has been so much better of a president than Donald Trump, they can't hold a candle to each other. That's the veracity. That's the actuality of the situation. If you want to look at just raw legislation passed, Joe Biden has been a powerhouse. If you want to look at bipartisan legislation passed, it's not even close. If we want to talk about what the economic policies of Joe Biden have done vis-a-vis the remainder of the world, because you can't compare two separate moments in time. You can't compare the economy in 2024 to the economy in 2020. Too many things intercede. Too many things happen. Just like you can't compare the economy in 2020 to the economy in the year 2000. There's just too many different variables. But what you can compare is how our economies are doing compared to the rest of the world during that same period of time. That's an apples to apples comparison. But Americans generally don't have a perspective that extends beyond our borders, and so it's hard to make that argument to them. But if you look at where America was compared to European economies and Southeast Asian economies in the year 2020, we were losing ground. If you look at where we are in 2024, we're so far ahead they can't see us. That's just the reality of an apples-to-apples comparison. But that's not the way, and the political parties and advertisers know that's not the way that consumers think. I said that I had to debate Rick Santorum the former senator from Pennsylvania, former Republican presidential candidate. I had a debate with him, I think Thursday, on Newsmax. And we were talking about Kamala Harris's proposal on price gouging. And I made the point that, look, McDonald's will sell you a hash brown, a little fried piece of shredded potato, for $4 now. You can go directly across the street and get the exact same piece of shredded potato deep fried as a hash brown from Taco Bell for $1. Now, is the McDonald's one 4 times better? Is it 4 times more delicious? Is it 4 times bigger? No. They've just advertised enough over the course of the last several decades that the McDonald's hash brown has become iconic, and therefore you're willing to pay the 4X premium on it versus the Taco Bell hash brown, which just came out last year, and most people don't even know Taco Bell has breakfast, let alone hash browns. You can get that exact same hash brown in a multi-pack at BJ's or at Sam's Club for about 10 cents a piece, and deep fry it yourself. You add in the price of the grease, you're still only at about 20 cents. You add in the price of the electricity to boil the grease and the price of the pot to cook it in. 50 cents for a hash brown. But yet still, you'll pay the 10 times price markup at McDonald's because they've advertised to you that it's the most delicious thing you can have for breakfast. And that is what happens in the political campaigns. The Trump campaign has realized, look, were we a better administration than Biden? No. That's why they ran us out. But if I just spend $1 billion telling you that we were better, people will believe it. And no, nobody's going to dig into the very easily identified numbers to determine if it's true or not. Nobody cares. That's the Band-Aid that Donald Trump pulled off of our politics. The Band-Aid that he pulled off is that nobody really cares what really happened, and nobody really cares to hear about it. When you tell people what really happened, their ears glaze over, they get bored, they look at you and just think of you as being a nerd. Nobody wants to hear it. You and all your numbers, all just out here telling all these stories about what really happened and stuff. Nobody want to hear that. And that's where Trump and Trumpism wins at. Because they understand that people, if you simply tell them that you won, they will believe you that you won. If you tell them you are a great president, they will believe you are a great president, despite there being no evidence to support it. So when we're talking about what's going on in these elections, when we're talking about what's happening going forward, we have to take our responsibility, which is, as Dr. Johnny Wilson said at Clark Atlanta University, the entire point of education is to be able to translate the OR to the OR, to be able to translate the original language to the ordinary language, to be able to educate our people by making sure they are aware of the things that are going on within the halls of power, and to be able to translate what's going on in a way that they can understand it, consume it, and therefore make change. We're in that position right now to be able to do exactly that. We simply have to put our nose to the grindstone and say we are going to do it, and we will not take no for an answer. We're going to keep this conversation going. We'll be back after the break. Calling 404-726-1380, News and Talk 13, 404-726-1380. Get involved in the conversation, people, passion, politics. On this Sunday afternoon, going back to the phone lines, we have TK from Ellenwood online. TK, how are you doing?
Pretty good. Patillo?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, do you have any relatives live in Kirkwood?
More than likely. I'm putting it this way. My grandma had 13 kids, 8 boys and 5 girls. And her mother and father probably had about 20. So there are a large contingents of us all around the state. You have to go down to LaGrange, Georgia, and there's a little road called Patillo Road, which goes to where the old Patillo plantation was in Troup County. And from there, Patillo's kind of spread out either with 2 T's or 1 T, some ending with an A, some ending with an O, throughout the southeast. So we all spread out everywhere. So I was back in my single days, I used to always ask somebody for ID before we went out on a date. But go ahead.
Yeah, I'm 82. I used to work with a man named Grady Patillo. When he died, he was working for the post office. He was a truck driver, and he was in the trucking industry, the major freight company, until they went out of business. And he had 2 sons, went on to become lawyers, so I was told. And I was just wondering, were you... And my kids finished with some Patillos that used to live in Kirkwood. But anyway, that's what I call about. But I've been listening to you ever since you've been on the air, first time caller, and I always want to know where you're in a relation to them. I know about LaGrange. I know a lot of people down there. Yeah.
I really appreciate it, and I can almost guarantee you somewhere down the line we connected somewhere. We all left the plantation at some point in time and just spread out to the winds. And if you ever want to make white folks uncomfortable, if you have an interesting last name, what I do is I'll say, how do I pronounce that, Patillo or Patillo? And I'll just say, I don't really care. It's just whoever used to own us. And then they get real quiet for a while. It's hilarious. They get real uncomfortable. Thanks so much for your call, TK. I really appreciate it. All right, going back to the phone lines, we have got Curtis on the line. Curtis, how are you doing?
Hello, Robert.
Hey,
Hello,
how you doing?
Robert.
Go ahead, Curtis.
Hate to see you leave. I came to Atlanta in 33 years ago, 1991. Found this station. I said, I got to find out about black people. Found this station called WIGO, Ron Saylor. First voice I hear is Gideon. Been around 33 years on your show. Now he has his own segment.
Look, it's the power of the dedication and determination.
But want to say congratulations to go to Washington. I learned one thing about America. It's an empire, and Miss Harris will be the new hegemon. When nothing changed, stay the same. Who run this country? Military-industrial complex. That's what I've learned. This war in Ukraine is a fake war. Not about no Ukraine freedom. Never was. All about money to the industrial complex. I had to learn we got to send aid to Israel. I'm on years ago, and I'm thinking, they got to send aid. And then I realized, digging through information, no, it never goes. It goes to the military-industrial complex. I had to learn that too, Robert. But through all my failings, I've lived all over Atlanta, struggling, trying to make it, and but nothing's gonna change. And I tell people, you really want to know what's going on? Google something called the industrial output. We are in decline. The G nations are the new powers. Their industrial output is at around 34. We're at around 29. The 7 G nations are in decline. Will they come back? No. All empires decline. And we are in our declining years. And we're not going to come back. And the politicians won't tell the American people the truth. Just like the birds and the trees, everything declines. Now, I don't think I'm wrong, but that's from over 70 some years of living. That's what I've learned.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to tell people to stay out of debt. I lost my credit score when I was 19. It was called the Fair Isaac score. Had no idea what it was. I didn't get my credit back till I was 26. You know what I learned? Never lose my credit. My credit score is at 850. I don't need it. I don't borrow money anymore. I try to teach people how to stay out of debt. Never get a credit card. I got a 4-year-old nephew. I taught my nephew, never let him have a credit score, anything. He's 14 years old now. He has $14,000 in the bank because I told him to always ask for money from the family when his birthday came. I don't ever want him to have a credit card. I want him to be on the plus side of life. So that's what I try to teach people. Credit is the most dangerous thing you can have, but it'll help you if you was out of work. When Meridian Medical Group closed, I was out of work. I had to borrow money to stay. I had 2 layoffs. Those layoffs, Robert, cost. They can really cost you. I was paying $995 in Dunwoody. Mm-hmm. When I left Dunwoody in 2017, the rent was $1,260. The year I left in 2017, I had to buy a home. I miss Atlanta. I love it. I just found out DeKalb Mall, they tore that mall down. There's been so many changes in Atlanta since I left. But now, a burnt down house will cost you $330,000. So I don't think I could ever get back. I'm trying. The house I got is paid for, so I'm putting together finances now to try to come back and buy me a home and live my life out in Atlanta because I always wanted to live there because of Martin Luther King. Mm-hmm. When CNN first came on, I'm living in Cleveland, Ohio, live from Atlanta. CNN, I'm going, I got to live there. But it took me years of struggle to get there. Moving across the country, New Mexico, California, New Orleans. Then I finally made it to Atlanta, 1991. I met Mayor Jackson. I met him. I met Young at a conference. I was meeting so many people. Man, I love Atlanta. I love the people. Yeah, they got crime and all those people come in, but the major Atlanta residents, love them. Love them. And I'm going to miss you, brother.
Well, look, like I keep telling Chris and other folks, I will still be around. Y'all still find me. Y'all still see me. It's just going to be in another forum because y'all know I ain't got enough sense to not say whatever comes to mind immediately when it comes to mind. So you put me in front of a microphone for 3 hours a day, I'm guaranteed to say something that will get my boss in trouble. So that's why they have those rules in place. But I will still be able to come through, inform people, and particularly I'll still be coming back on WAOK to inform people about how the fight for reparations is going, to give y'all a ground level view of it and how this fight for voting rights and criminal justice reform, economic opportunity, the inside baseball, how sausage is being made. I want to make sure I can keep y'all informed on that. So I'll still be around. Y'all still be hearing me. Y'all will still see me walk around Atlanta. I'm not one of those people who lives in a castle somewhere way off from the people. Y'all know y'all see me at Kroger. Y'all see me hanging out in the West End somewhere. So I will still be around, and particularly that's why I tell people follow me on social media, that we'll figure out a way to keep the message going and keep the conversation going, even if it's not in a terrestrial format, a way to get those things done. And also we'll be planning, as everybody said, they want to have a meet and greet where everyone can get together. So we'll be putting that together, and we'll either hop back on AOK and announce when it will be, and we'll also post it on social media. We can put those things together. So I try to explain to folks, particularly during the campaign for judge earlier this year, understanding that AOK is a family, that everyone there, whether you like them or don't like them, they're connected by a similar string and a similar set of interests, and all that is dedicated towards the uplift of this community. Whether you agree or disagree with the other people, everyone has the same goal of making Atlanta and making our country a better place. They could be even doing anything else on your Sunday afternoon, but you're listening here, and that's what I appreciate. And you listen because you want to make this a better city, you want to make this a better community, you want to make this a better country, and we have to do that and take it to the next level. But none of us can be able to stand still while doing it. You have to do it in motion, kinetic energy, keep the ball moving. Thanks for your call, Curtis. Really appreciate it, and we're going to keep working together on many of these things. We'll be back after the break, calling 44726-1380, News and Talk 1380 to involved in the conversation. And Chris, I wanted to say how much of a pleasure it's been working with you. These, we've been through so many different board ops and producers throughout the history of the show, but it's great to have someone like you who's really just dedicated, hardworking, respectful, ready to learn. It's been just a pleasure being on here with you. I'm hoping that they are able to move you on up into the director seat soon, so that we can hear all the information you have, particularly for a younger audience that needs to kind of have that gap bridge for them.
Yes, sir. Definitely. I express that sentiment. Same to you. I appreciate you, because just as much as I've been a pleasure to y'all have been a pleasure to me, especially you, Ms. Patillo. So I appreciate you, and I would definitely be staying in tune with you. Oh,
absolutely. And remember, Chris, like I said, you're young, no rush to get married, no rush to have kids. They'll always be there. Remember, if you want to make your life easy, find yourself a big woman. That's one of the most important things you can do. Don't worry about all these Instagram models and all that. Get you a good, solid country woman who sings at the church. Gonna make your life a whole lot easier. Don't listen to social media. Get you a good church girl. That's gonna work for you. All right, let's go into the phone lines. Chris, who we got online?
We have Williams from Mount Vernon, New York.
All right, woman, go ahead.
Hello?
Hello? Hey, William from Mount Vernon. Go ahead.
Yes. Hi, good afternoon, Attorney Patillo.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Great. Yeah, I just wanted to say, congratulations on your next move. I know it's going to be great. And I want to tell you first how I first discovered you. I was here, in NYC, browsing through the Odyssey apps, because I got tired of listening to New York radio, and I came upon WAOK one morning. And I was listening to Dr. Bashar Ritchie. And then one day you were covering for him. And I said, hey, this brother's very interesting to listen to. And I've been following ever since for about a year.
I really appreciate it. You know, I spend a lot of time up there in Mount Vernon. My wife is from Westchester in the North Bronx.
Nice.
We broadcast the show from up there probably about 2 or 3 times a year, just when we go to visit her parents over there in Elmsworth and everything. So I have love for the area, have love for that whole community up there. Got some good, solid, working class people, and most importantly, it gets rid of that stereotype that folks have about New Yorkers. When you figure out their parts of New York are really just small towns, country villages, where everybody gets along and everybody knows each other's names. So I really appreciate you tuning in.
Exactly. Now I want to get into the DNC conference that just passed. I thought it was a very good show, but there was no talk when Harris was on stage. She didn't say anything about the poor. She didn't say anything about recovering COVID funds that are being used to build prisons, like in Alabama, where they found that there was poor sanitation conditions affecting many Black Americans. So I find that kind of sad that she didn't say anything about that. And then also, when you talk about, what demands Black America should have, right? Mm-hmm. Remember years ago, Tavis Smiley used to have the State of Black America?
Yep.
I think there should be another State of Black America, whether it's hosted by Tavis Smiley or anyone else that they can get. And they should have Randall Robinson, who wrote The Debt, Dr. Claude Anderson, and economics professor William Sandy Darity. And they should, have this conference, talk about what Black America needs, and then put these demands to the Harris campaign. Because when you see other groups and individuals, when they make demands, they say it loud and clear. Like, for example, on CNN, I saw a show where the co-founder of LinkedIn said that he donated $7 million toward the Harris campaign, but he wants to have the FTC chairman replaced. Mm-hmm. So that demand is coming with, a request and money behind it. And then also you get foreign nations that come to Congress and they make demands about what they want, and then money is always being sent, billions of dollars, overseas. So I think we can get something done. It just has to get done.
I agree with you completely. And part of the point that I've been trying to make to people is that right now I've never seen both parties so hungry for the Black vote. Trump understands that he needs Black people more than at any point in time in his life. President Trump needs Black folks. And there's no reason for us not to use this period of time to force him to sign off and agree to reparations. We saw this morning on Meet the Press with Kristen Welker. J.D. Vance, President Trump's vice president, was on, and Kristen Welker asked him, will he sign a national abortion ban? J.D. Vance said no. He said, will he veto a national abortion ban? J.D. Vance said yes. So Republicans have been running on abortion for 50 years. They have made it a bedrock of their political movement that they would oppose abortion. But now, as the rubber hits the road and they're realizing what they need to win, and that they need suburban white female voters to come across and vote in favor of the Republican Party, they have thrown all those Christian evangelicals under the bus and said, we will be a pro-choice party because that is what's best electorally. So if white women in the pro-life movement can get Republicans to stand down from their 50-year promise to ban abortion nationwide, then why aren't we, through our Black Republicans, whether that be our friends Bruce and Shelley, or on the national level Ben Carson and Tim Scott and Byron Donald, etc., why don't they get Donald Trump to commit to reparations? That is a Republican idea. Remember, it happened under the radical Republican Congress during Reconstruction. It was the Republicans who promised us 40 acres and a mule. It is Republicans like Senator Stevens who wrote the legislation that was passed by the House of Representatives that demanded that we build out the Reconstruction era to include the Freedmen's Bureau, the Freedmen's Bank, educational opportunities, economic opportunities for the formerly enslaved. All we're asking is that Donald Trump sign off on the 1865 Republican agenda. He loves calling himself the best president since Lincoln for Black people. Well, show it and sign off on some legislation that Lincoln will agree to and believe in. And just like no tax on tips started with Trump, and now the Harris campaign is agreeing with him on that because it sounds good. If Donald Trump signed off on reparations, the Harris campaign would have to sign off and agree to reparations. And that can happen in the next couple of months, if not the next couple of weeks. The question then just becomes, are we going to make it happen? Are we going to force it to happen? When Trump comes to town and says he wants to meet with black folks at the barbershop, are we going to pull out our banjos and start juggling watermelons and pulling fried chicken out and saying, yeah, some boss, I sure do love you? Or are we going to say, I need reparations now if you want our support? When the Harris campaign comes to town, are we all going to put on our Greek letters and our HBCU sweaters and start doing the stanky leg and strolling and doing the electric slide and all that stuff? Or are we going to say we need reparations right now? That's the only thing that we will accept. If we make the demand, we will get it. And I found it interesting that the Democratic National Convention, that they had all these quotes from Jesse Jackson that they were using. Y'all know I've worked for Jesse Jackson the majority of my adult life in various capacities going in and out of the organization. But the tribute they gave to Jesse was they wheeled him out on stage, let him wave, and then wheeled him back off the stage. Now, when they hear the Democrats saying, when we fight, we win, that's a Jesse quote that came directly from Reverend Jackson. When they use the quote and say, the fierce urgency of now, that's Jesse. When they start talking about we've never lost a battle that we fought, but we never won a battle that we didn't fight, that's Jesse. But so they love using the imagery, the iconography, the ideas, the thoughts, but they don't want to have that radical agenda. And this is part of the reason why they stay on the outs with the mainstream of the organization. But understanding that, we have to say that they're going to come to us, not in the future, now, this week, next week. And they're going to be demanding that vote from black people. And whether it's Trump, whether it's Harris, whether it's Biden, whether it's West, whether it's RFK or anyone else, we need to say in one voice, the only way that you can secure the black vote is with reparations. And if we demand it, we will get it. And if anybody tells you not to demand it, they are a COINTELPRO agent of the government who wishes for nothing more than continued subjugation of African peoples in this country. That is the way that it works. So we can either decide that we want to do it together, and anybody who looks at us and says we can't do it, I'm going to look at them with a side eye. I'm not inviting them to the rest of the meetings because I can't trust you no more. This has to be our clarion call at this moment to make this fight and make this sacrifice. I'm willing to make the fight and make the sacrifice. Everyone else has to do it too, and tell everyone in your circle that. That President Trump comes to you and says, look, I'm looking for the black vote. Yesterday, Trump said he wants to get his hair cut at a black barbershop. I don't give a damn about you getting your hair cut at a black barbershop. I do not give one damn about you getting your hair cut at a black barbershop. Tell me what you're going to do about reparations. You're willing to become a pro-choice party. What are you going to do about reparations? And yes, I love the imagery, I love the iconography, I love the Little John of it all. Had a great time at the convention. Now, what are you going to do about reparations for black people? And that has to be the way that we talk and the way that we negotiate going forward. Thanks so much for your call. I really appreciate it. And we'll be back up in New York soon. So follow me on social media. Let me know when you guys are up there. I will absolutely take you out for a drink because I love my listeners. We'll be back after the break. News and Talk 1380 WAOK.
Clear?
You saw, what was it? J.D. Vance was down in Brunswick this weekend trying to order donuts in a very awkward manner. They're going to be campaigning around the state. And I want you to spread this message to every single black person within the range of your voice, within the range of your social media, within the range of anything associated with you. If anybody wants to come and talk to you about the election and who you're voting for, be it Democrat, Republican, Green Party, Independent, Flat Earthers, I don't care who. You have to let them know that the agenda for black people is reparations now. And each campaign needs to be releasing their plan on reparations before the election to allow black voters to determine how they will vote on such issues. There are 22% of black people who are not supporting Kamala Harris right now. For Barack Obama, that was 5%. For Hillary Clinton, it was 10%. For Joe Biden, it was 12%. So there's significant work to be done for Democrats to get black folks on board to support the Democratic Party again. And similarly, President Trump has been working feverishly for the last decade to leverage his connection with rappers and pop culture, being mentioned, I think something like 100+ rap songs over the years, appearing on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, hanging out with P. Diddy and Mike Tyson, etc., Herschel Walker, Lawrence Taylor. He has more black support than almost any Republican in recent memory. And he will have more black support than any Republican in the foreseeable future. So for Republicans, if you're going to really make a play for the black vote, this is your last shot. Who do you think going to be appealing to black people in 2028 on the Republican side of the aisle? Do you think J.D. Vance going to be getting black folks to vote for him? Think Marco Rubio has some support from black people we don't know about? This is a singular opportunity for black Republicans, for black conservatives to have an impact. And the question becomes, are you going to stand up to the powers to be within your own party and tell them that if you really want to get black votes, you have to become 1865 Republicans and support a pathway to reparations and announce it now? Let's go back to the phone lines. We got Leroy on the line. Leroy, how you doing?
Barrister Patillo.
Yes, sir, Leroy.
How you
go
doing,
ahead.
man? It's you closing up shop, huh?
Look, if they will let me do both, I would. But you sometimes you have to make sacrifices for the greater good, and this is me doing exactly that. Did we lose Leroy? Damn, we lost Leroy.
Still here. He just not saying nothing.
Go ahead, Leroy. We're burning radio.
Yeah. I said that I'm gonna miss tongue wrestling with you over the issues of the day. But to talk about the DNC, the van they had outside where they offered free abortions and vasectomies says it all. And that 78% poll that you quoted, I think that's kind of high. I don't believe that she has 78% of the black vote. And that's merely based on what I've seen, and it's just a one-person meet of what I've seen on the internet, just from different posts I've made on different platforms, and the reaction. And the reaction of posts that show that she is not who she says she is gets overwhelming support versus those that actually do support her and, don't like the post. You see what I mean? Like if you got a post out there and it's got 100 responses and 75 of them are likes and loves, and 10 belong to those who don't like it, or you can say the whole 25. I would say that's indicative of what is at play on a larger scale versus a poll of choosing people that a hand-selected pool from where they get the responses from. But yeah, man, she and the DNC show very clearly that they are not for us because they put everyone else first. I mean, I don't remember that, unless I missed it, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember the Asians coming out and asking for a hate crime bill after what happened here in Atlanta.
Oh no, they absolutely did. Yeah, they were running commercials, Stop Asian Hate. They were running compilations of people walking down the street punching Asian folks in the face. They lobbied for it, and they made it clear that their demands were a Asian hate crime bill, and they got it within 6 weeks.
Okay, and that's even more of an indictment because we've been at this for well over 100 years. Well, no, let's be more accurate. We'll just say well over 50 years, since that's about the time when LBJ said we'll use a clean term and say black people voting Democrat for the next 200 years. Although that's not the word that he used.
Well, the funny thing about that quote is, and Doris Kearns Goodwin wrote about this, LBJ never said that, but he said way worse things that people don't quote. And I, for the life of me, I don't understand why we have to use the fake LBJ quote when he got some real ones that are some humdingers. I'll give you a hilarious one. So they were voting on the Civil Rights Act. This was when LBJ was still vice president. So they're trying to get a particular senator to support the bill. So Kennedy was asking LBJ to whip up these votes. So they can't get this senator on the phone. He's ducking and dodging. He doesn't want to be contacted by the White House. So one day he comes into his office. He opens the door, and LBJ is sitting behind the senator's desk wearing a cowboy hat and nothing else. Cowboy hat, some boots, and butt naked. And walked out the senator's office and said, "We expect to see you at the White House this afternoon." And that's part of the way they got the Civil Rights Act pushed through, because that's the way the LBJ kind of just intimidated and bullied people into voting in favor of things. And LBJ made it very clear that he had no interest in civil rights, no interest in black people. He had an interest only in power, and would do anything to achieve those goals of power. So there's so many better LBJ stories that can be told that are real versus the fake one. Another good LBJ story, during World War II, LBJ was a congressman. And so he went over to, he enrolled in the military, but he didn't want to get shot. He didn't want to get hurt. So he pretended and got like a cushy position in the South Pacific in the Air Force. So he was supposed to get on a transport plane just to avoid being in any kind of harm's way. So the plane that he was supposed to get on took off without him because he fell asleep. He wakes up, gets on a different plane, comes to find out the plane he was supposed to get on shot down, everybody on board died. And LBJ just luckily survived because he overslept. And then by the time he told the story, you would think that he was storming the beaches of Normandy, that he was a war hero. LBJ was a terrible, terrible person. Listen to some of the speeches from Malcolm X about him. But that gets beside the point, because the Republicans love using the fake LBJ quote instead of researching who the real terrible person was and using the real terrible stories about him instead of the fake terrible stories. So I encourage you, Leroy, that we can keep arguing on social media and Facebook all the time, but I want you to get the real stuff instead of bringing me, the Diet Splenda stories. Give me the real LBJ stories. LBJ used to walk up to other senators in the bathroom at the U.S. Senate office, and he believed himself to be substantially endowed. So he would walk up to you and stand next to you at the urinal and pull it out, and he would say, "You ever seen Jumbo?" Hello? And just use that to intimidate other senators into voting in favor of his bill. One of the craziest presidents we've ever had. But for some reason, we keep using these fake stories. I'll give you the last word on this. I got on the LBJ diatribe. Go ahead, Leroy.
Oh, yeah, you did. I didn't even know I was still on the air. But
yeah, I didn't either, so it worked out.
So, yeah, man, whether that quote is real or not, he was still a Democrat. And just like other Democrats, they have no interest in what we want or what we need, and definitely not what we deserve. And that was shown proof the other night or throughout the week. I mean, like you said last week, they have abortion for us, but they don't have reparations for us.
It's all about what you demand. You saw what the abortion people were doing out there. They had a 50-foot inflatable IED. They had vans. They had protests. They had people in outfits. How many people were out there with banners for reparations? How many people were out there putting the money behind what it takes to lobby? Look at what the Palestinians had to do just to try to get a voice. They had 100,000 people protesting. We got 10 folks in the corner with a bullhorn. We got to get on our stuff. We can't just blame other people. We got to have our horses up and ready to go too. And the same thing with the RNC convention. We should be out there also demanding reparations. And every single time Trump wants to have the Blacks for Trump, it's that time to make that demand for reparations, since everybody seems to need our vote more than ever. And it was great seeing the Exonerated Five, great to see Al Sharpton. They did the very abbreviated tribute to Reverend Jesse Jackson. When Governor Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, was making the announcement, during the roll call for the states, I found it telling that he said, the state of Illinois, where the birthplace of Barack Obama, where he wasn't born there, but he was a senator from there after being born in Hawaii. And then he also said, and the adopted home of Superman, because in the comic books, Superman landed on a farm, ostensibly in Illinois. But he didn't say the home of Reverend Jesse Jackson, two-time candidate for president. But then you can quote Jesse Jackson all night. You can talk about, when we fight, we win, a Jesse quote. You can talk about, joy, which is really just an adaptation of hope, which is quoting Jesse Jackson from his campaigns in 84 and 88. You can do all these things that are based on what he did, but not give him credit or attribution or frankly, the type of tribute that he deserved given his place in Democratic politics. Remember, he's the one who changed the proportional delegate system for counting delegates, which is the only reason that Barack Obama was the nominee in 2008. If it wasn't for those changes and we were still on the winner-take-all system, Hillary Clinton would have been the nominee in 2008. More than likely, she would have been the president in 2008. That changed. We had a first black president because of the work Jesse Jackson did. When it comes to these ideas around civil rights and moving it from just a social justice movement to an economic movement, that was Reverend Jackson who moved it to an economic movement. The first civil rights leader who started buying up stock in corporations and attending shareholders meetings and making demands of the boards at shareholder meetings to include African Americans. The entire policy the Republicans are putting in place right now to try to get rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion is trying to undo the work of Reverend Jesse Jackson. And that's just the reality of the situation. So for the governor of Illinois to give tribute to Superman instead of Reverend Jesse Jackson in his home city, I think that was a slap in the face that shows you exactly what the powers that be feel about people who try to upset the apple cart. Folks who are willing to go against what the party establishment believes in. And understand that there's a pay grade above president in this country. We just saw it. We all loved the concerts and the Kamala Fest and all that. I enjoyed every minute of it. I enjoyed watching President Trump start losing and fluttering and all those things. But we also have to realize this is all built off of a group of unnamed individuals forcing the president out of power. And if there's a pay grade above president that can force them out, that means there's a pay grade that can force this issue of reparations if we demand it to be so. But going back to the phone lines, we have Jihad on the line. Jihad, how are you doing?
I'm good. Much success to you in the future.
Thanks so much.
Let's get, so don't vote. So you're telling black people don't vote because they didn't acknowledge Jesse Jackson, or don't vote?
No, I never said anything about not voting. That is, you're taking the words out of my mouth. Jihad, you know I'm never going to tell.
You keep bringing up all these complaints. So you telling black people don't vote?
No, look, Jihad is called nuance. That means that it's called nuance. It means that we can hold more than one thought in our minds at any given time. And that means we can look at the situation and say, A, this MAGA movement got nothing for us. That these people have no interest in black people and doing anything that will benefit us. You can look at Project 2025. You can look at Project 40 or Agenda 47. You can look at the 20-point plan that Trump issued last week. They make it very clear what they want and what they believe in. But at the same time, you can look at the Democratic Convention and say that they only did the most cursory top-level view of things that affect black folks, and it was more of a pep rally than saying any substantive thing that they would do for black people. They talked a lot about supporting Israel. They talked a lot about supporting Ukraine. They talked a lot about supporting labor unions. They talked a whole lot about supporting women's rights and abortion rights and gay rights and all these other rights, but very little to talk about black rights. Just real quick. The point that I'm making is nobody's going to stand up for the rights of black folks if it's not black people. So we should, in good conscience.
All of those things don't include black people?
I'm sure they do, but what I'm saying is that we should, in good conscience, make sure that our agenda is at the front of the line, just like anybody else. Those white feminists aren't going to get up there and talk about reparations for us.
Our only agenda, according to you, is reparations. If they don't,
it's not our only agenda, but it's our most important one.
Don't vote, don't give them your support, etc. Then you talk about the Republicans just now, but then you gave the Republicans credit for, without properly explaining in history, that the Republicans of Lincoln period and the Republicans that passed the Civil Rights Act are different from the Republicans that exist today. You're confusing people, and you're sending doom messages.
I'm not confusing people because Jihad, folks are smart enough to understand those things.
They're not
folks,
smart enough
folks
to understand.
are smart enough to understand and to put those things in the context and understand that if these people are coming to you and coming to your communities, and look, Donald Trump is showing up to them begging, hat in hand, please, black people, I will do anything for you to save me. Please, black people, I'll get a haircut at the black barber shop. Please, black people, help me if you can. I'm saying if he wants to make that argument and Leroy's going to support him, then Leroy needs to make the argument to Donald Trump that we need reparations from him, and it has to come from both sides. Why? Wait, well, Jahada, real quick. Why is it that the white feminists can force the Republicans to become a pro-choice party, but we can't force them to be a pro-reparation party? Here, I'll give you the rest of the time. Go ahead.
You trust that Vance and Trump will make a statement tomorrow that they support reparations and therefore black people run and support them? Like, you trust that they would not lie, that they would just do that just to get the support and then do what they've been doing? I mean, what you're saying, that people are so idiotic and so small. The idea that you said that they changed their mind on abortion and et cetera. You think those people believe what Trump and Vance said just because they said it in the midst of trying to get elected, and that they will be true to what they said, just what they said on the campaign trail? Come on, man, stop belittling the minds of our people and confusing them.
It's not about confusing people. It's about holding an agenda strongly within your hands and saying that I'm demanding that and I won't accept anything else. You're not going to go to the white feminists and tell them, well, look, we're not going to talk about abortion, okay, because that might scare people. You're not going to go to the migrant community. You're not going to go to the Latinos and tell them, well, we're not going to talk about immigration reform. You got to have some kind of values that you stand on, or else you're just going to be a useful pawn for the political parties.
Values. The bottom line, you know that the President of the United States can't automatically say tomorrow, give black people reparations, and it comes into effect. You know that's not true.
I said that we need each party to present what their ideas are on a study commission for reparations. Even black folks haven't fully agreed on what our plans for reparations are. So no, it's not going to just pop into existence tomorrow, but we got to put it on the plate.
Okay, so who did you say you're going to work for? Did you make that announcement?
I did not make the announcement because the office has to make the announcement, so I ain't going to step on it.
When you make that announcement, I expect to hear a news conference from you and whoever you're working for that your major agenda and black people in that office you're going to work for.
Hustle time, last 10 minutes of the show. I'm going to get your calls in and talk about, one, everything you enjoyed about this show since we've had it on the last almost 10 years. But two, your takeaways from the Democratic National Convention and what we can do to make sure that we are on that agenda. I think what we made clear from the beginning of this show is that we are about empowering our people. No excuses, no questions, no doubts. Exercising raw political power. People always talk about Machiavelli and his writings. I implore you, and now we're about to get nerdy, I implore you, if you get the opportunity, people talk about Machiavelli through the prism of his work, The Prince, where he is writing to aristocratical leaders around Italy and Venice about what needs to be done by aspiring princes to establish political power. However, there's another work by Machiavelli you should read called The Discourses in Livy, where he further talks about the role of the people and the proletariat in forcing change within political systems. Remember, this is before the system of democracy, our Western democracy as we know it now, existed. This was during the time of kings and queens, feudalism, and princes. But even then, he understood the strength of the proletariat in forcing the hands of the powers that be towards the political and economic changes needed to uplift all the people, not simply those behind the walls of the castle. I implore you to read that and understand that we have the power, particularly right now. And the only thing stopping us is this I can't do attitude. The only thing that's stopping us is the belief that somehow we don't deserve it. We need to be subservient to other groups. We need to wait our turn until everybody else has had their fill at the table. And then we can show up and maybe get us some to-go plates, some scraps, something like that. I believe if we have that attitude, that is what we will get. But if we have the attitude that we are the most coveted group of voters in this country, we're the most powerful group of voters in this country, that we are the swing votes in almost every single swing state. And that if we turn out in 2020 or 2012 numbers, we win the states like Georgia, North Carolina, Florida, Texas, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota. But if we don't show up, then Donald Trump wins those states, and he wins the presidency easy. So that being said, if Donald Trump wants to win, come to black folks with your plan for reparations, roll it out on Monday. If Kamala Harris wants to win, make your plan for reparations and release it on Monday. Bring Dr. Cornell West in, have him the same way that Kennedy left the campaign trail, have him join you and say that he's going to be working together on reparation policy for the Harris administration. Bring in the best scholars in the world to work on these issues. Because if we're able to do so, then we're really able to make the changes that we say that we want to see happening. Going back to the phone lines, we got Reverend Keith Hammond on the line. Reverend, how you doing?
Attorney Patillo, how you doing? First, I'll make it quick. I hope Leroy's still listening because there was no such thing as the Asian hate crime bill. It was the COVID violence bill that the media named the Asian hate crime bill. Mm-hmm. Secondly, neither party really cares about the plight of our people. You got one that won't listen, that's tone deaf, another one that breaks promises. So that's where we are. We really need a third party. We really need a third party, a stronger third party. And for the record, Kamala Harris did co-sponsor the study reparations with Cory Booker in Congress. Mm-hmm. Correct?
You're correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and so this is what I keep trying to explain to people. When I keep hearing this retort, well, what did she do when she was in Congress? Or what has she done while vice president? That's not the way that these things work. Because the vice president is literally called your superfluous excellency. It is a job that does not do things. If you know what the vice president is doing, something bad has happened. Generally throughout history, you knew what Dick Cheney was doing because George Bush ain't know what the hell he was doing. You knew what George H.W. Bush was doing because Ronald Reagan had dementia and was counting jelly beans in a jar. So you don't want the vice president doing things or stuff like that because things are generally going pretty bad if they are. So the question is not what Kamala Harris has done as vice president. The question is how will she harness the power that this presidency has to benefit black folks? And if we don't have that as our singular agenda item, there's nothing for us to talk about going forward. I'll give you the last word to you.
Yeah, so the other thing, too, and one thing that the administration that she's a part of did do, one was student loan forgiveness and also the HBCU funding and the reparations they gave to the farmers in the settlement, the black farmers. Yep. And I think we can't overlook that.
You're right. I think people. It's funny because I have people who want to talk about the money that President Trump gave them, $1,200, 10 years ago almost at this point in time, but they don't want to talk about the $2.2 billion that Joe Biden gave out 2 weeks ago. It's almost as if people are trying to find a way to not support this this ticket, as opposed to simply saying that, look, I believe that the best thing for black folks is to have a clear, finite agenda that we plan on imposing upon the American political system, and if anybody stands against it, we simply will not support them. And then we'll allow them to figure out from there what they want to do about it, but they'll have to do it without us. I think that some of our folks are almost scared to make that kind of stance. They're almost afraid of what will happen if they stand that strong for themselves, and that's why they're more so willing to kowtow and kind of scrape and beg, because they don't want that kind of pressure on them to be the ones making those decisions and making those kinds of calls. Because if that does happen and Kamala Harris loses, they all gonna blame black people. Just like when Hillary lost in 2016, they said, well, it's because of black men. No, it's because only 66% of white women voted for Hillary Clinton. That's the reason she lost. It had nothing to do with black men. It was because of them, but they're afraid we will get blamed, and therefore they don't want to step out on faith. I'm encouraging people, stand up, fight. Don't worry about what they say, because we're going to have to win this thing at the end. Because if we win the election, but we don't win liberation for black folks, and it's a pyrrhic victory, what did we actually get out of it? That's many of the complaints that people have about the Obama years, and that's the complaints we'll have about the Harris years if we don't make these things happen. Thanks so much for your call, Reverend. I really appreciate it. I'll try to get one more call in. We have Miss Scott out of Georgia. How are you doing?
Hi, Robert. Thank you for taking my call. I want to let you know I have listened to you for the last 10 years, so I am a follower from way back. And I thank you and Stacy for coming on and sharing your opinion, giving us more insight. I look forward to following you on your other social medias to keep in touch with you. But I just want to let you know that people with disabilities in Georgia, especially, we adore you because you helped us with our Commission for the Blind advocacy campaign. And I look forward to hearing all of the new things that are going to come forward from you working in Congress.
Thank you so much, Ms. Scott. I really appreciate it. And this is why I tell people to advocate on levels small and large, because we have to make impacts at every level. We talk a lot about Washington, D.C., but we have issues right here in Atlanta. We have issues in every municipality. We have issues down to the neighborhood level and HOA level. And all of us have a role in making those differences and making those changes. All of us have an opportunity and ability to leave an imprint on this world. And I remind folks that when we talk about the civil rights movement, we talk about King and Rosa Parks and the kind of the big hitters of it. But the real people who made that happen were unnamed individuals that you'll never know. People who stood up at lunch counters around the country. People who stood up to racist systems and integrated schools and integrated businesses and establishments. The thousands of people who lost their lives and lost their voices to history that we'll never know about. They're the people who made the movement happen and made the world that we exist in today. And it's going to be those folks, the small folks, the unnamed folks, you and everyone around you who are going to make those changes and make those differences going forward. Don't ever let somebody tell you that you can't do it. Don't never let nobody tell you that you can't make that difference. Don't never let anybody tell you that the odds are against you and the chances are low, that there's nothing we can do about it. There's always an opportunity. There's always a chance as long as we keep the fight going. I tell all of you right now, keep that fight going. All right, end of the show, end of an era. We will see what happens going forward. Like I said, if I can figure out a way to be back, I will. But if not, then this is the goodbye. I say goodbye to you guys. Gotta thank Chris for holding down on the ones and twos. Gotta thank Joyce Attell for making all this possible. Have to thank Gene Ross, Rick Caffey, Lorraine Shock White, Janice Mathis, Reggie, all the people throughout the years who have been instrumental in this show existing and being able to stay on the air this long. Gotta thank Atlanta for welcoming us and making us a part of your normal weekend Sunday routines. Lord knows after church you can be doing anything else, but you guys have been riding with us for a decade. And as I say in the end to every show, in the words of Gil Scott Heron, no matter the consequences or fears that grip your senses, you gotta hold on to your dreams. Hold on to